I watched them be exhausted and then they got fired by text message. I'm not living that life.
Welcome back to another episode. As always, y'all know I am just grateful to be here with you for another episode because guess what? Without y'all, there is no podcast. Today, this conversation today has been a long time coming, all right? When I tell you, I have been so excited for this guest. I met her, oh my gosh, during the pandemic virtually. And initially, the conversation was around collaboration with the organization that she was working with at the time. And then, pandemic happened, as things, life happens. And then one day, we're in the same LinkedIn circles, and I noticed that she was like liking my post. I was like, let me reach out to Anna again. And she was like, well, I'm actually going to be in Atlanta. And so we met up and just had the best conversation. And from there, we have just cultivated this beautiful and growing friendship. And one thing I can say about friendships for me is that I know there's friendship when we don't have to talk every day, but when we actually get back on, it's like no time has passed. And so this is the woman that I have come to know, but she's also the curator of a very important conversation we're going to be talking about generational gaps in communication. And I mean, there's so many more conversations that even before we started to come on record, we identify at least two other topics. So get ready, y'all. I'm excited to introduce Anna Ettin. She is the co-founder of Tapestry Partner Solutions. And I will say I had the pleasure and the honor 2 years ago of speaking at the ERG Global Alliance conference. She and her partner, Monica Brunash, curated and put together. It was an amazing conference. I've been trying to get back ever since. But this woman and her schedule be doing the most, right? And we're going to get back there. So anyway, I am excited and honored to have you on the show, Anna. Thank you for being with us. How are you?
Thank you, my friend. I am equally delighted that we are finally doing this, officially recording it. We probably could have a whole series of episodes had we recorded our conversations over the last 2 years.
So true.
And, I think our friendship is evidence that LinkedIn really can make real connections.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
we started as being in each other's mutual fan club.
Uh-huh.
We were like posts and commenting
Yes.
things together. And
Mhm.
was so grateful when you made that initial reach out. And
Mm.
when we finally met in person in Atlanta, it definitely felt like just having lunch with an old friend.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
beautiful. So I'm excited to get into it. As you mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Tapestry Partner Solutions. We also own within our wheelhouse, the global ERG network.
Mhm.
It is an organization that's focused on connecting with leaders and organizations that build sustainable, strong employee-led ecosystems. And
Mhm.
that is certainly a critical feature and factor in our workplaces and healthy workplaces today. My broader work in Tapestry Partner Solutions is, as you said, focused on the generational dynamics and from multiple aspects, both the communication and the way that we work together, the very human nature of our conversations, our dynamics and working together, and also the workforce and workplace implications
Yeah.
for organizations and what that means for future generations coming to the workforce, how we'll retain critical knowledge that has been built and gained through lived experience over the years from our baby boomers and our Gen Xers,
Mhm.
and also ensure that millennials and Gen Z is prepared to lead organizations into whatever comes in the next 25 years.
I so appreciate how you integrate in your work with ERGs and BRGs into the work that you do bridging this generational gap. I will share with you briefly that ERGs, I think you were the person that really opened my eyes to the level of community engagement. And I had done some speaking for ERGs, but like I think I was very, very educated by just talking to you and also being at the conference at the power of ERGs. And so I just want to just acknowledge you for the work that you do there as well.
I appreciate that, and it is directly related to our conversations about generations. For me, I came into ERGs 20 years ago and helped to launch a local chapter in a call center, women's
Mm,
leadership, and it allowed me to make meaningful connections with women that were 20 years my senior
mhm,
in the
mhm,
workplace.
mhm.
I learned from them. I learned business acumen. I learned communication skills. I learned sometimes what I didn't wanna be, right? Who I wanted to emulate and who I didn't. But I saw very quickly that was a place where we could have knowledge share, that
Uh-huh.
bring a bunch of smart people into a room together, made ideas flourish,
Yeah.
gave people launching grounds, etcetera. And so I launched in 2012 the Intergenerational Employee Network at
Mm,
so I
mhm.
took that sort of ERG and knowledge transfer and worked with a team of people. The conversation at the time was all about the millennials. Like, "Oh,
Mhm.
no, millennials."
Yeah,
And, retrospectively, millennials were not as different from prior generations as Gen Z is from their predecessors. So
yes.
that's a conversation we'll get into, but we launched that organization as an employee community, as an employee
Mm,
network at
mhm.
the bank. And then we're able to, over the next decade, really infuse the company with knowledge. And so, for instance, when you look at the multi generational wealth strategies of the Merrill Lynch teams, while we
Mm,
certainly wouldn't give the employee network full credit for the strategy,
yeah.
it absolutely was influenced by the work that we were doing at the time, the conversations we were having with business leaders,
Yeah.
why this matters.
Uh-huh.
If your clients are all median age of 70, then, like, we need to talk about what's gonna happen next.
Quick note before we dive in. If you're a woman in healthcare leadership, and especially if you're a woman physician or clinician leader looking for a space that truly gets the challenges that we experience as women leaders in medicine, check out our REMAP cohort. It's 4 months, real community, real skills, and 22 CME credits. Link is in the show notes.
And
Yes,
the priorities of someone who your investor, your client, may not be the same as the priorities of their children.
that's right.
And so are we thinking about this across a period of decades that is really meaningful to the families? How does the business serve the humans?
Yeah.
And this generational work is a way to help organizations better serve humans.
Yes. You said something pretty key that I want to circle back. The priorities of one client, and I'm going to substitute in generation, are not necessarily the priorities of their children. And I
Yeah.
think that's important because for what I see, and there's a lot of memes out there, a lot of videos, a lot of like jokey jokes about, even some fun banter and sparring between generations, which I find funny in some respects, but we have to know where that line is and when it's fun and when it's not, when it's
Yeah.
harmful. But one of the things that I see is that I feel like a lot of the disagreement between the generations happens because there are different values and priorities. And one is not only do they not understand each other, they're very grounded in their righteousness about their way. And the listening part doesn't always show up. I'd love to hear your thoughts about
Ooh, the listening part. Yeah, so I agree on the root of some of that discourse. Like, there are some generational memes and jokes that I think are hilarious, and there are a couple creators that do funny things about
Uh-huh.
Gen Z does this, that, and the other. And some of those are funny, but in my work, they are, I don't want to say only funny in context because I think
Uh-huh.
I find it very relatable. Certainly, when we started iGen, we found that it felt accessible to people. Everybody's got a generational story,
Yeah.
whether that is something that happened in their family, something that happened at work, etc.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The challenge is, to your point, understanding when does it move from a little humorous and useful in our understanding of each other
Uh-huh.
into damaging. So
Yes.
the first time my boss refers to me as, that kid, I might chuckle. That might be funny.
Mhm.
I'll laugh it off if I'm the
Mhm.
youngest person in the office.
Mhm.
The second time, I'm probably going to cringe a little bit. The third time that happens, that's now undermining my authority
That's right.
at work. It is undermining my colleagues' confidence and trust in my
Mhm.
knowledge and
Mhm.
my ability to show up well,
Yeah.
because it is now being used as a way to be dismissive or demeaning. And so I think some of those generational conversations are, I don't know what the right word is, but they are sort of meant to be funny, but
Right.
not quite.
Yes. They're like subtle
Backhanded compliments.
backhanded. Yep, backhanded compliments or subtle digs. I
Yeah.
think you're right. And I think, the other side of that is this use of the word boomer. And anyone that's over the age of 40, well, there's unk, and then
Yeah.
for the men at least,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Where there's unk and then there's boomer, right? And so anyone over the age of 40, 45 is now boomer. But it's like the way it's said, right? Boom, okay, boomer, right? And so
Right.
that's another thing. Like it's the same as, oh, that kid right there, or hey, kiddo, right? And it also signals that there is no understanding and that there might not even be a desire, a
Yeah.
motivation to understand.
I come back to what you said about different values and how that impacts the conversations. So there are two angles that I want to highlight. So one is some of these conversations are the same as it ever was, meaning I've got a buddy who studies naval history. We've all got our things, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he reads historical naval documents, and he sent me one time an excerpt from a newsletter or like a message that had been sent out from
Uh-huh.
naval officers to their troops and something like 1912, 1913. And the article was saying something like, these young enlisted folks expect us to give them reasons why we are giving them orders, or they want to know why we are doing certain things. And so you may not feel like you have to tell them. It behooves us to explain to these young sailors why they need to. We had such a good laugh about it because that was, 100 years ago.
Yes, that is so interesting.
So some of that, it is the nature of humans. When we hit now, we don't have time to explore the evolution of human aging history, right? But like at least at this point in human history, when people hit late teens, early 20s,
Uh-huh.
it is natural. And I turn to the one of us on this call is a physician, and it's not me. But as I understand brain development, it is
Yes.
natural for adolescents, for young people to be pulling away from their parents, to be
Uh-huh.
exerting their own independence, to figure out,
Mhm.
where are my boundaries? Where are my guardrails?
That's right.
How am I different from the people who raised me, the people
Yes.
around me? And so it's sort of like a duh moment. Like, of
Yes.
course, people in their late teens, early 20s are challenging the norm. That's what they're
Yeah.
supposed to be doing. That's
Yeah.
what every generation before them has done. So,
Yeah.
yes, we have new slang. Yes, we have new media. Yes, we have new. And that was happening in some way or another in every new generation's emergence. It's happening faster now because of the pace of technological evolution and the trajectory that that's on right now.
Mhm.
When you look at, there's some great graphs that show the sort of, what do you call it, ramp of
Yes.
technological evolution, right?
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
sort of goes slow, 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 fast.
Yes.
And so even people that talk about generations and
Mhm.
cohorts are saying like the cohorts are smaller, they're evolving faster
Mhm.
because of the way our communications and
Mhm.
our tools, our channels, our
Mhm.
skills are evolving. I'd say the same on the other end of the spectrum. So I feel myself feeling a little more boomery or, yeah, right, like whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Is And I went on a road trip with my daughters a couple years ago, and we did like a no tech drive, except for our music.
Mhm.
We did a round robin. Everybody picked two songs.
Mhm.
And I figure I hated about half of their music. Right.
Mm.
Yeah. No, the other half went on my playlist, was added to, I'm like, stick this on my playlist, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I loved a lot of it. And it was such a beautiful chance for us to talk about like, why do we like this? And
Yeah.
what is it about this artist? What is it about this
Yeah.
song, this beat, this
Uh-huh.
lyric that
Uh-huh.
really speaks to you? But I remember thinking like this tracks, right? I
Mhm.
dislike about half of it. And
Mhm.
I remember my own mom really hating a lot of the music that I was listening to. Right. So some of
Yeah.
this is the same as it ever was.
Yes.
However, when we look at the experience that Gen Z has had, and I mentioned in the beginning that millennials were not as different from us as we thought
At
they were.
all. Mm-mm.
Right, and certainly, even though the cohort is described as, typically 1980-ish to 1995-ish,
Mhm. Mhm.
depending on what source you look at, right? There's no
Mhm.
legal definitions of generational cohorts. I like to research as a foundational point. I think they do great work, and so I often look at
Mhm.
what they are talking about. Someone that grew up was born in 1980 had a holistically different experience than someone born in 1985.
That's right.
And so even within that generational cohort, it is dismissive to just sort of paint these broad strokes.
Similarly, someone like Generation X is very similar, right? Like someone who is on the younger end of Generation X is going to have an extremely different experience than someone who's on the elder end of Generation X because they're going to have a more similar experience to the
Mhm,
baby boomers growing up. One of the things I want to highlight that you said, we're going to bring it back
mhm.
and then bring it back to what we were saying because I don't want to miss this. It's the same as it ever was, right? What you were talking about when you were talking about the brain development, the stages of development,
Yeah.
hit so well. And let me tell you, because I think when we think about the stages of psychosocial development
Mhm.
as, given by Erickson, we think about it up to the point of maybe someone's 20s. But we don't think about the fact that in our 40s, we're in a stage of development. In our 50s,
Yeah.
we're in a stage of development. In our 60s, and if we were to look at the other end, I wish I had a chart, a screen that I can share because I nerd out on this stuff. If we had a chart, we would see our stages of development are generativity versus something else, or like,
Yeah.
just we're moving into different mindset. And so it would make sense that when we hit that certain age and we're like, how you questioning me? Come on. Like,
Right.
why do I have to explain to you? Because we have evolved into the space where we have gone from having to explain ourselves and feeling like we needed to explain ourselves to being confident. And then that sort of like spans across to the younger people like, why are you questioning me? So I just
Yep.
wanted to highlight that because I really think that has something to do with it, especially you bringing in, that's such a, I had no idea that you bringing in this whole piece around the naval story, right?
We only have maybe 200 years of human history in which we have lived long enough to even understand
Uh-huh.
happens to the human body. I
Uh-huh.
mean, we talked about one of our topics for the future is menopause, right? And
Yes, ma'am.
the lack of knowledge and research that we have around that. But
Hmm.
we've only been living long enough
Yes.
to have seen that. And so I think likely the same thing in terms of what happens in that psychosocial development when
Uh-huh.
you are 70, 80, 90 years old.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And as the cognitive function needs to tighten up and be used for critical and limited purposes. I've only got limited things that I have time to think about
Yes.
in my brain's reach. I
Yeah.
think that's often why people, some of those family dynamics around like, why is it every time I see my grandma, she says the same thing to me?
Yeah.
Because for her, time is short and she's just real worried about this thing.
Uh-huh.
Her goal is not to harp on you, right?
Uh-huh.
That's a cognitive function thing.
Yeah.
It's
She
stuck
might
in
be
her head. And
yeah.
she's just wanting to make sure she's just checking
Mhm.
in. Like, you still think you still working on that degree? It's not, she just wants to. So there are some very different
Mhm.
psychosocial things that are happening
Mhm.
to our elders that we
Yeah.
don't yet understand fully either. Just the
Yeah.
same way we don't necessarily understand what's happening to our younger generations, we're still lacking on the older end as
On
well.
that. And I think that's why there are some memes that are pretty funny where you'll see like a young person start to sound like their parent and they'll be like, and they'll do like the echo. They're talking to their
Yeah.
kids and they're like, back in my day, and then it'll be like, back in my day, back in my day, and then they'll be like, and then they'll like clothes will change and their clothes will start to be like their parents. And they're like, because as we evolve
Yeah.
into those stages of development, we start to then understand what our parents were talking about. Our values start to shift, and we're like, oh, okay. Now I'm thinking about legacy. Now I'm worried about what's
Yes.
going to happen after I'm gone. Now I'm worried about who's going to succeed me in this position and making sure that the company continues to thrive, right?
Yeah.
So that the work ethic of the young people in a way that will help the company to move forward. But what doesn't get accounted for is that the work ethic of the younger people may look different. There may not be less of a commitment to thriving, but it looks different because, as you were getting ready to allude to before I took you on a detour, the Gen Z experience is markedly
Yeah.
different. First native digital generation. I look at my
That's
son and
right.
I'm like, yo.
Hey, before we get back to the episode, I want to take a moment to share something close to my heart. 17 years ago, someone saw my leadership before I could see it myself. That experience changed everything for me. And that's exactly why I created the REMAP cohort. If you're a woman physician or leader in healthcare who's tired of being talked over, burned out from carrying conversations you don't have language for, or just craving a space where you don't have to explain being the only one in the room, this is for you. REMAP is a 4-month cohort, a small, intimate community for women, physicians, and leaders in healthcare, where you'll build real communication skills and community, navigate the hard stuff, and yes, earn CME credit in the process. 22 Category 1 AMA CME to be exact. Listen, you deserve a space that pours into you, not one that continues to extract from you. Find out more, reserve your spot, or schedule a discovery call at mindremappingacademy.com. Also, the link is in the show notes.
They started throwing that digital native term around with millennials, but most millennials did not grow up with technology in that way.
Right.
It was an incorrect moniker. It
Correct.
was placed too early, and it put
Hmm.
a burden on them that they didn't need.
Right.
So one of my favorite things about millennials was the intention for work to have purpose. And it was what the generation was faulted with the most as they were coming in. I spent inordinate number of hours coaching boomers on we're asking the wrong question. It's
Right.
not these why do these millennials expect that their job be meaningful?
Yeah.
It's why do we not think that ours should?
That part. I'm like, when you said that, I was like, wait a second. What? What?
You can hear it out loud, right? When you say it
Right.
out loud, it's
What?
like, wait, what?
That makes sense. You want your job, which is why a whole bunch of
Yes.
Gen X are changing careers. It's the
Yes.
whole reason why Generation X are like, wait a second, we don't have to do this for 50 years or 60 years and retire.
Yes.
We can actually do something different. And then the millennials start that way. Like, no,
Yes.
that's what I love about millennials
100%.
too.
I still remember when one of my mentees I remember we'd been meeting for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months, something like that. And she mentioned one day that she was going on an interview. And I was like, wait, I thought you loved your job. She was like, yeah. And I also saw this other thing that looked really cool. And I just felt like it was a giant, like, smack in the forehead to my Gen X, but, like, I've been
Right.
taught you work hard, you keep your head down, corner office, blah, blah, blah. But in my generation, the boomers weren't retiring. And now many of them still haven't because they couldn't. Granted,
Mm-hmm.
some boomers are on second or third act, different
Mm-hmm.
careers because they
Mm-hmm.
want to be.
Right.
And so I'm not dismissive of that. Many of them are.
Yeah.
My dad will probably teach until he is incapable of teaching anymore. He's
Right.
84, just picked up a new gig. Like he's
Right.
just he loves it.
Right.
But also many people are in that position because their retirement funds took a hard hit in the financial crisis of
Mm-hmm.
the early aughts,
That's right.
and they have to. It was
Mm-hmm.
not their choice. They would have loved to give somebody else the corner office. So finally, some of them are exiting. So millennials were about purpose. Gen Z is finding some boundaries,
Mhm.
saying, and the older generations are taking it as an affront to work ethic rather than asking ourselves, oh, how might my life and experience have been different if I had some boundaries?
Mhm.
I mean, I know for me, I worked every weekend from probably 2020 to 2022 or 23. Every one.
What?
Now, some of that was because I was working in a global function in a global organization during a
Mhm.
global pandemic, and frankly, a racial and social reckoning in the United
Yes,
States
that's right.
in doing human people work during that
Mhm.
time. And so,
Mhm.
but should I have turned off the laptop? Absolutely. Should I
Mhm.
have said no? Absolutely. And
Mhm.
I had been allowed myself to be conditioned that my worth is my productivity.
Mm.
And, this is an emergency.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in another conversation about
Oof.
corporate trauma and fake emergencies and
Fake 'em, yes.
right. Like you work in a real emergency room. You have served in where true emergency room. I had a boss years ago that used to say, we're not saving people here. This is not a learning, like I worked in L&D. I worked in learning and development. He was like, you don't
Yes.
have learning emergencies. This is not right. Like this is not appropriate. This is not, we can't do this to people. So
Yeah.
anyway, Gen Z is saying, you know what? You're welcome to email me any time of day you'd like to. I will respond to it when I'm back in the office.
Mhm.
And I think that's beautiful for the rest of
Absolutely.
us. I wish that my generation had felt safe doing that.
Mhm.
And I had a really deep conversation with myself one day about like, what did I think would happen if I just said no?
Mm.
If I just didn't like, what would have happened if I just didn't respond to my boss's 11 p.m. email? Eventually, it probably would have hurt my career trajectory. But that happened for me anyway, because I was always willing to say unpopular things.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to do
Right.
the right thing for our employees. And but so right, like what would it have harmed us to say no? What would it have harmed us to turn down a project? To
Yeah.
say, you know what, boss, I got enough on my plate. One of my favorite lessons that I have learned multiple times in my career and, to make it sticky is being able to say, I'd be happy to take on that work. What would you like me to put aside to prioritize on that?
Yes. Yes.
Right. And so Gen Z is really good at this. They're really good at saying, I watched my parents get laid off, whatever the,
Mhm.
experience was with their
Mhm.
current job. I watched them be exhausted and then they got fired by text message.
Mhm.
I'm not living that life. I don't
Yeah.
want to live that way. And I
That's
don't
right.
think we should have to.
Mhm.
And the hustle culture that millennials fell into because they had to,
Mhm.
we have to have multiple incomes. We can't survive on
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I think Gen Z is sort of saying, like, that's where some of the slow life conversations are coming in. I want to be analog. I want to
Mhm.
be out in the world again. I want to turn the phone.
Yes.
I want to slow down. I want to
Mhm.
be a person in the world, being, not a person doing, human
Mhm.
being, not human doing. So I think Gen Z is going to teach us, like, I'm so excited about the
Yeah.
boundaries that they're bringing. It is not a lack of work ethic. They want to work hard, they want to be successful, but they're also not going to destroy themselves
Right.
mentally, physically, health wise
Right.
to be able to do that.
And I think what it requires, I love that you said that because what one of the things that came up is if they can do the work required of them in a specific time and then just be done, like
Preach.
that's what's happening, right? And so what it requires of organizations is to have flexibility, have that kind of flexibility, like, okay, it's not more is better. As a matter of fact, that's a characteristic of white supremacism, right?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
more equals better. That's how we got into this mess, right? And so if they say, okay, we got a project and they get the project done and the project is done well, and then they're like, all right, I'm done. Like the organization can actually save, you know, if they allow for that kind of flexibility rather
Yeah.
than, okay, the project's done, I'm clocking out. Like, wait, no, you need to do more work. Why? Because I completed the assignment as given, top 1%, like
Yes.
I did the work. And so I like 1,000% agree with you. And it's interesting because you're talking about how Gen Z, and I see this, they're getting off social media, they're
Mhm.
turning off their phones, they're getting out and touching grass, as they say.
Yep.
And in my son, who's Gen Alpha, is like, I'm starting to see
Yeah.
the amplification of that. So he, I mean, he likes his devices, but he also will be like, "I'm tired. Look, can I go outside?" Even if there's no one to play with, he'll go out. He'll shoot some basketball. He'll play outside a little bit. We play like old school games. He likes to play
Yes.
Monopoly and Battleship. And that's our latest thing is playing Battleship, which is fun. Or play
Have y'all gotten into
cards.
Uno yet?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Especially like Uno Spin. Woo! He loves some Uno Spin. So,
Yeah.
this is we're moving back into, I think, balance
Yeah.
with the younger generation of these boundaries and balancing analog and tech. And I think with the newness of technology and all of the advancements, of course, we immerse ourselves in it, and then we see the harm of it. And I think Gen Z is like, it's got that sort of view, like, all right, I'm born into this, and it ain't everything. It ain't all that. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my 19-year-old is one of the biggest proponents of turning the phones off for my
Mhm,
seven-year-old grandson,
mhm,
and those are my favorite moments. We play outside every day, whether
mhm,
it's kicking around the soccer ball.
mhm,
My grandson's found a little crew of neighborhood kids, and
mhm,
my probably favorite sound in the world is to walk out on my back deck and hear the laughter and yelling, like, right,
mhm.
just of the kids just
Yes,
out, just in the
yes,
neighborhood, right? It feels like a throwback to our childhood. And, I don't wanna say a safer time because I don't know if we were safer, we just had less information. So,
right.
let's
That's
not. That's another day, another
for sure.
conversation.
Yeah.
But the sense of just being in the world, like,
Mhm,
go poke something with a stick or,
mhm,
kick a ball or
mhm,
just be hot and sweaty outside. And,
mhm.
I keep a fresh bag of icy pops in my fridge right now because at any given moment, the crew of kids will run off. And, uh, I posted about it recently. He showed up one day and said, "Nana, my friends want to say hi and they want a popsicle." I was like, "There
Yeah,
we go.
that's
That's
right.
that's
That's
what we're
good
going
stuff.
for."
That's good.
And so I do think if we can give ourselves the grace and space to tear our own selves away, our devices, right? The criticism that is often thrown at young people for being on devices, what is that? I'm rubber, you're glue kind of thing. So it's not just them. So if we can go outside with them and
Mhm,
do some of this disconnected analog, we will
mhm,
find those moments of conversation, moments of connection, moments of understanding in those shared times together that will
mhm.
bridge the gaps, that will build those bridges we need. Eventually, when that generation gets into the workplace, maybe we have some deeper empathy, some deeper understanding,
Yeah,
and some desire. To your point, you started by saying sometimes we don't always see the desire to improve.
yeah,
We were not necessarily seeing the signals. And so I think outside the workplace, taking those moments to just be offline and be a person is really important as we keep these conversations going.
I love that. I love that. Girl, I lost track of time for a second. I was like, "Ooh," because you know how we do it. We could just be talking, just talking. I just wanna thank you. I wanna highlight just the overarching the things that we talked about. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff, but, like,
Mhm.
overarching is this recognizing that we've been through this all before, like, nothing changes, right?
Yes.
History repeats itself, and so some of this, what we call generational gap, doesn't have to do with Gen X, Gen Z, Baby Boomer, Gen Alpha. It has to do with the stages of human development, so that's part of it. But then we have to take into consideration when Gen Z was born and the exponential growth of technology and how they really do have a different experience. And I think probably one of the most potent things that I'm taking away that I think the audience could take away is like use the moments outside of work. Use the daily interactions with your kids, with the neighborhood kids, with your parents to get to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And then that will translate into the workplace. And, leaders in the workplace, y'all just need to start to create something like have a little bit more flexibility of thought process and behavior. That's all I got to say about that.
I think we have to ask more questions, seek for understanding.
Yes, seek
And
for understanding.
And I think in the workplace, if we underestimate the difference of experience that Gen Z had in their formative years, we are then not setting them up for success when they come in. As we think about leaving the session, I'll mention something that my 19-year-old said to me when she drops these little profound nuggets all the time and doesn't realize, and I try not to make a big deal of it. I just kind of clock it and move. She said, Mom, I thought an entry level job was a place that they would teach you how to do the job.
Whoa.
Imagine. Right? So if we don't fundamentally shift the way that we are bringing people into our organizations, the back to basics that's needed to translate from college to corporate, from high
Mhm.
school to workplace,
Mhm.
we can stand around and complain about it for another decade. It's going to get the best talent. The companies that start making shifts now,
Mhm.
instead of complaining about it, really take action and say, this isn't about what I like the need and the legacy of the organization? And how do I keep the knowledge that people have spent decades gaining? Like, those are the questions we need to be asking. And so, the work that I'm doing in the coming year is really focused around risk advisory
Yes.
for organizations and
Mhm.
being able to, I managed in financial services during the financial crisis at Amazon during the global pandemic. There's one thing I've spent a lot of time doing. It's trying to predict what risks we are seeing, what's coming.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm focused on and talking with clients and some small organizations, some large.
Yes.
It's more about being able to work with teams that are really willing and ready to take some action.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Speaking of the work that is coming up for you in the next,
Yeah.
in the next coming months and years, I would like for you to share with the audience, those who might be listening, those who might be leaders in my listener audience, how can they get in touch with you, follow your work, hire you for consulting, coaching, or speaking? Where
Love
do
it.
they need to go?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is probably the most easily accessible. I'm the only Anna Ettin out there. It's easy to find. And certainly, Tapestry Partner Solutions is
Yes.
online.
Mhm.
You can find me there as well. And then for organizations that are focused on ERGs and are whether you have long established ERGs and you want to take a new look at the future, or
Mhm.
whether you're just getting started and want to figure out how these breakthroughs can really benefit your workplace,
Mhm.
the Global ERG Network
Yes.
is the thing to follow. I'm also doing a little writing on Substack and
Yeah.
dabbling a little bit. So,
Okay.
there'll be some work focused things, probably some personal stuff out there. Just kind
Yeah.
of playing with that space a little bit
Yeah.
as I try to find, I wrote for corporations for 25 years and now I'm trying to
Yeah.
find my own voice again.
I love it. I gotta connect with you on Substack because I'm on Substack too. I dabble too.
I love I love it.
Let's connect on Substack for sure.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm so excited. The community you have built, the connections you have made are so valuable. Thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Oh,
I just value our friendship so
yes.
deeply. And I think, as you said, we probably outlined at least two more episodes.
Yes, I mean, I'm writing them down. So, yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Anna. I love and appreciate you. And I
Thank
look
you, my
forward
friend.
to continuing to collaborate in all the ways that we do and
Yes.
growing our friendship. So,
Amazing.
y'all, this sister right here, she the real deal. So go check her out. Go check her out. Find her on LinkedIn. Find her at Tapestry Partner Solutions. Connect with her on Substack. Connect. And if you have any kind of conversations in your organization going on around generational gaps or generate or risk, or if you're trying to start an ERG or trying to like improve your ERG, experience, let's reach out. All right. And for the audience, as usual, thank you for being an audience member because without you, there is no podcast. Please share this episode. Share this episode because we all are in different aspects, development stages of our lives. And I think we are, as a piece of humanity, we need to like really deepen our connection with one another. And we can start by asking more questions and connecting with the people who are not like us, who do not think like us in a lot of different ways across generations. All right. And then we also appreciate when you leave a review. So, with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you again, Anna. And until I see you all again, stay empowered.